Today, I'm going to be talking about tools of the trade for fluking. What I get into in the seminar is I give you a general basis about fluke, the species in general, where and when to target them, but then I get into my favorite way to fluke fish. It's a tournament winning tactic, and it's a really good one to learn if you want to catch your doormat fluke. My name is Jenni Ackerman. I am a New Jersey-based fisherman. I've lived in Point Pleasant Beach my entire life. I'm still there. No matter how many hurricanes we have, I'm still there. I work for the Fisherman magazine. I do a lot with them. I also have my own video series with the Fisherman magazine called Open Boat. And if you watch the New Jersey or some of the other regions, their video fishing forecasts on Thursdays, that's when you'll see my Open Boat video series. Also, it airs as its own separate video on Sunday nights at 6. So if you go home tonight, watch the Open Boat before Jeopardy comes on because it airs at 6 o'clock. I am also, before I started working at the Fisherman magazine, I worked at Grumpy's Tackle in Seaside Park. Bobby, who works there, taught me how to build my own custom rods. And right now I'm up to 11 custom rods that I built for myself. And it's a very fun, free time thing. If you have the time to do it, I recommend getting into it because you can learn a lot when it comes to building rods. The rod I have here I built, you guys can look at it after the show. It's a lot of fun. And one of the biggest things that I enjoyed from working at Grumpy's Tackle, and even with the Fisherman magazine, although I'm not the only time I'm face to face with people is at the shows, is fishing for me is such a passion that I love teaching people how to get on to fish, helping them better their skills with fishing. And it's really rewarding when people reach out to me or they come back into the store, they see me at a show and they're like, hey, you taught me how to do this and I caught my first keeper fish, blah, 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 stuff like that. It's really, really great to see because you can see the little sparkle in their eyes and stuff. And it's when you get someone on their first fish and you're not there, it's different, but when you're actually there seeing it, it's really rewarding. So having them come back and tell me that is really rewarding too. And that's a picture of me. I love this picture. It's me at the Manasquan Inlet with a giant doormat fluke. I didn't reel it in on the Barbie rod. I did reel it in on a different rod, but I was a tall kid growing up too, so you can tell that's a really big fluke too. And then of course me on the cover of the Fisherman with another fluke. So this is a really good icebreaker question. It doesn't just revolve around fluke fishing, any type of fishing in general. Does size matter? I'm big into just fishing as a stress reliever for me. I tell people all the time, I joke, I said if I didn't have fishing, I would probably be on America's Most Wanted because I'd be absolutely unhinged going crazy. But fishing for me is a stress reliever. I don't see it as a competition. And I go out there and there's days where if I'm fishing, I don't catch any big fish, but I'm happy as long as I catch one fish. So that fish could be that little tiny postage stamp in my hand here, to a keeper fluke, or to my personal best fluke that's 12 pounds, 33 inches. That's the mount that I got. But it doesn't matter to me, because as long as I'm catching fish, I'm happy. Especially with how the population, stock status is going and the regulations for some of these species. If you look, in a couple of years, unfortunately, newsflash, some of these fish aren't gonna be around anymore. I mean, look back at the weak fish population. That flourished, and now there's barely any around, and you get lucky to catch this unicorn fish. So that's why I'm just thankful to catch anything anytime I go out there. So size doesn't matter. I'm just happy to catch fish. So getting into the science behind fishing. I went to Monmouth University. I wanted to be a marine biologist. I love science. I still do. I'm not the best at math. So that wasn't going to work out. But just because I didn't go to school for it doesn't mean I don't study it. When I target a species, I want to learn every single thing about it. I want to know what it likes to eat, where it hangs out, does it migrate, does it travel to spawn, where is it going, where does it usually stay, how does its patterns line up based on the time of the year. I want to know every single thing. Basically, you're studying a species before you even go out and target it. So this is a little fact sheet about fluke biology, and I'm dreading the first two words because I just got Invisalign, so I have a terrible lisp, but I'm gonna butcher this anyway. So Paralichthus dentatus Okay, that was pretty good with the Invisalign. That was actually pretty good. So that's their Latin name. They're the chameleons of the sea. And why are they that? They blend into their surroundings on the bottom. It's really cool based off of where you're fishing. If you're fishing sandy bottom and you catch a fluke, that fluke's gonna come up and it's gonna be like a nice beige color. If you're fishing mud holes back in like the estuaries in the back bay, they're gonna be like really dark brown, and even like mussel beds and stuff too. They blend into what they're laying on because they're ambush predators. And when they're born, their eyes are on like their eyes migrate. So they're normal when they're first born, and then as they grow, their right eye literally migrates to the top of its head. So imagine if you were like a human and you're born normal, and then you get older and your eye just moves up here with the other one. That'd be really disturbing. But with fluke, it works because they're a flat fish. So they need both eyes as they lay on the bottom. They need both eyes looking up to find prey. And what happens is they're ambush predators. So when a bait fish or something, your jig goes by, they will see that and they'll come up and strike. So making them ambush predators. And that camouflage just makes them 10 times better at their job. And they even bury themselves in the sand too. And a really big thing, I know there's been a lot of give and pull with the regulations for fluke, but looking at how many female fluke during the spawn season can spawn up to 4 million eggs. So if you have a healthy stock of fluke that are consistently spawning and producing this egg count, that's pretty good for the future of fluking. So we just have to, keep an eye on that and be good with our regs and everything. And something really cool, fluke fossils have emerged from the Paleocene epoch, which was about 57 million years ago. So these fish have been around for a long time, or the species of fluke have been around for quite some time. And they love to prey on shrimp, crab, squid, and smaller baby fluke. The one thing I always do, no matter what I'm fishing for, is I'll cut open their stomachs, and I recommend you guys do this too. Cut open their stomachs, see what they just ate, and then if you're going out, like if you're going out the next day, going to that same wreck or that same piece you were just fishing, match the hatch. If they had shrimp in their stomachs, get live shrimp, like grass shrimp, or get a shrimp imitator, something like that, and just go back and see if you can get some more fish that way. So the first fluke spot, the beach. Growing up, I never had a boat. I still don't have a boat. I go on my friends' boats. A good way to get out of paying for gas is to bake them cookies. So fishing off the beach was a lot of fun for me. That's what I did, like before work or after work, I will go on the beach. And sunrise to sundown shifts, I call them, are really good at this time because the water's warming up. When the sun comes up, they're getting ready, they're getting hungry for breakfast, and at sundown, they're kind of closing down, they're getting ready to, have their dinners. Or of course, you can just fish an incoming tide. Keep an eye on the tides. If you have time to fish, go. Incoming tides will bring in more water, and it'll also bring in more bait for these fish to feed on. And a lot of the times, those fluke will stay in close. So as the incoming tide comes in, it's filling in those deeper holes and troughs that you'll find in close, and that's where they hang out. So the biggest thing that's kind of a debate with fishermen is having patience. Us fishermen, we can say we have a lot of patience, but when it comes to not getting on a bite, that's when that patience just completely disappears. But having a lot of patience is really big for when you're fishing off the beach, because it's not like you're on a boat where you pull up to like the Wildwood Reef and there's fish here, you're gonna drop down, you're gonna get fish. When you walk onto a beach, you pick a spot and then it's like, okay, there's good holes here. I'm gonna fish it for a little bit. I don't have anything. Let me walk a little ways down and try here. I don't have anything. Let me try, going to the north side. I know there's a good trough here. You gotta keep moving till you find fish. And if you get one fish in a hole, there's usually a second one. There could be more. So if you get one bite, keep working that spot, and then once it runs out, then just move down. You gotta walk. Like your step count, if you have an iPhone and you have a step counter, you're gonna get some good steps in fishing the beach. It's a ton of fun. And another big thing when you're fluking off the beach, you don't have to cast super far. You're not surf casting for stripers trying to get out past that second bar. They hang in close sometimes. So literally I'll just underhand pitch it out there, let my ray get to the bottom, and then reel, half crank, reel, jig, 1, 2, 3, reel, jig, 1, 2, 3, and work it all the way in. I won't stop until it's at my feet, because like I said before, they hang out close. So if you see your jig in the wash, keep working it. Bring it all the way up to your feet, because even if you don't see the fluke, they could be slowly following it in. And the rod that I like to use when I'm fluking off the beach, I'll use an 8-footer with a 3,000 to a 4,000 size reel, because you want to have a little bit of a bigger rod that has a bit more backbone, because in the summertime, when the water warms up, you get heavier bycatch. I've seen people catch bigger bluefish in the summer while they're fluking, stripers, cow-nose rays if you want to get spooled, even cobia. So having a bigger rod to handle potential bycatch is better, because you don't want to, break your rod, get spooled, have to leave in the middle of a bite. God forbid something happens with one of those bigger fish. The next spot is the back bay. Now, a lot of you South Jersey guys have been blessed with early season fluking. Like early May, I know there's a ton of tournaments down here that are all back bay, and you guys have some killer good back bay spots that if you're not fishing in May, if you wait till July to go out in the ocean and fluke fish, you should be taking advantage of that May bite, because the back bay holds a ton of good fish. And there's so many different spots you can get to. You can either wade, but you gotta be mindful of like drops and holes and stuff, so study it on maps and everything. Or if you have a kayak, you can kayak fish back in the back bay. Or if you have a smaller skiff, drop your Minn Kota down and just, cruise through those little spots. And you could find big fish back there, because those estuaries, they hold a ton of different species. Fluke, weakfish, there's rays back there, houndfish, bluefish, schoolies, but there's also bait. You have all these bigger predator fish back there because there's bait. There's a ton of bait back there. So taking advantage of early season fluking in the back bay, I highly recommend everyone does this year. Like end of April, get all your fluke rigs set. I'm gonna get into my rigs too, so you can get these rigs set. And find a spot in the back bay just to try. Because once you hone in on a piece that you know and you study it and you know there's fish there every early season, go every year and you'll find fish, and then you'll learn more about the area around you. And the setups you can use, light spinning and conventional rods, 6 foot I like to use. 6 to 7, I wouldn't lean towards like a 7-footer, especially on a boat, and just a 3K size reel. Now we're getting to the boat. You guys are here at a boat show, so are you looking to buy a boat, or do you already have a boat? Go ahead, raise your hand. Do you have a boat? Raise your hand. Yeah. Good. Are you looking to buy a boat? Anyone else? Okay, good. So this is a ton of fun. This past season was not a ton of fun fluking from the boat from the ocean, because it was a brutal season. I'm sure you guys can all agree with me. I see you guys nodding your head. Yeah, we don't want to think about that. The season before that was good, but this season not so much, because of the weather and everything. But it was better in the rivers and back bays. So if we have a copycat season from last summer, stick with the back bays. That's your time, because those fish are going to be back there. But ocean fluking can really hold some doormats if you're in the right conditions and at the right place. And that's where those tournament winning fish matter, because you're in deeper water and those fish will be hanging out on those pieces for a lot longer, and they might not get hit as heavy, because if it's an unknown wreck, which is like rare nowadays, but if it's like an unknown wreck that might not get hit heavy by party boats or other fishermen, you could have a doormat just hanging out right there. And fluking it's the same. Their bites aren't going to change based off of the beach or off the boat. So when you're jigging, you wait for that. I call it the 3 taps. You have tap, tap, tap. After that 3rd tap, that's when I set the hook. Why? Because you got to give them time to chew. If they're working on your bucktail with a 6-inch grub and it's a bigger fluke, like, yeah, there's some times where they'll swallow it and then you just bring it up, but you got to let them work, because if you have a big bait and they do 1 chomp, that's your 1st tap. They're still at the tail of the grub. If you set the hook's all the way up here. They're not getting that hook in their mouth. 2nd chomp, they're almost there. 3rd chomp, by that time, that hook is in their mouth. And what I like to do is after the 3rd chomp, if they're still there, I'll take my rod and I'll just gently lift it up just a little bit. Because if I feel that weight on there, I know they're still there, and that's when I set the hook. But usually after the 3rd tap, that's the time to set the hook. And it's the best feeling when you hook up to a big fish and you're in deeper water because they're angry, they give you head shakes, and the one thing you need to rely on is if your fishing buddy is a good net person. You gotta make sure you have someone that knows how to use a net on the boat. I'm a great netter, so if you need me, give me a call. I'll net all your fish for you. If your buddy you're sitting next to isn't trustworthy, then you can substitute me in, I gotcha. And personal preference with spinning or conventional on the boat based off of your style, but I mean, you're here obviously because I'm talking about pitching up current and I brought a spinning rod so you can see what my personal preference is with that. I like using spinning rods better. And it's funny, when it comes to blackfishing, my favorite species, I'm the total opposite. I won't touch this rod. I'll use conventional only. I won't touch that rod. But now this is the time to get your notebooks out, start recording, take notes. I'm gonna talk to you about pitching up current for fluke. This is my favorite way to catch fish, or catch fluke. And it's just, there's so many benefits to it. It's so much fun. And we're gonna get into the science of it. It's the Indian, not the arrow. Add this to your fluking repertoire and you'll wow the other guys on the boat who are just sticking to jigging up and down with a heavy old-fashioned conventional with like a pound of squid on the end of it. So how to do it? One, you're gonna need a boat. Go out to your favorite wreck and you're gonna do a dummy drift over the top of the wreck to see what direction you're drifting over the piece. This is important. And once you establish your drift, you're gonna start and you're gonna just slowly work. If the drift is too fast, you can put a drift sock down or use spot lock, anything like that, just to reduce your drift, or even power drift over a piece. Because your whole goal is to cover the entire piece. Like your tracks after you're done working a piece on your machine, I want to see like zigzags over the whole thing. That's how you work a piece. You're not just covering, if it's a shipwreck, be like, oh, I'm just gonna drift over the bow. No, you're gonna drift over the bow, you're gonna drift over the midsection, and you're gonna drift over the stern. You're gonna cover that whole piece because you don't know where those fluke are. If you just cover the bow, you could have a 12-pounder at the stern, like starving to death, willing to, jump on your rig and get on that boat because they really want to see the partner you got. So you got to cover the whole piece. When it comes to pitching up current, you only cover a 4 to 6 foot area. So it is a little bit different compared to dropping straight down, but it just works so much better. When I like to fish the bow, I call that my dance floor. I'm up there on the top of the bow, completely covered because I don't want to get sunburned, and you see me, just working the bow with my rod. I don't know what dance move this was. There's something where you do this, but that's basically like what you're doing. And sometimes I'll catch myself with my hand on my hip, so I'm literally doing the dance move, but I call it the dance floor. So the bow is preferable, but you can fish the stern. You kind of have to coordinate with your fishing buddies with what they're doing. I'll get into that on the next slide, but those are the two good spots because you can work it either the front or the back. And when you're pitching up current, you don't need to upper hand cast. That's a little crazy, and especially on a boat. I usually send it underhand or I'll even pitch it. And since you're working a smaller area, you want to get your stuff down as quickly as possible. So what I do is when I send my stuff down to the bottom, you guys are going to get like Muppet Vision 3D here. You're going to get, I have hook guards on, so you're safe. So when I send it, I pitch it out, and then notice my bail is still open. I go like this. So I just lay out a ton more line. I will do that multiple times, and I'll watch my braid snake on the surface. And that's just laying line out. I'll keep going until it goes tight. That's when I know it's on the bottom. So when it goes tight, oh, you guys are in danger. I lost the hook guard. I see it. You're fine. I won't hit anyone. I'm a professional. But I'm not liable if you get hooked. Anyway, thank you. So when that braid goes tight, you reel in a little bit of your slack, and you want to still have, you feel the bottom, but you want to feel like your braid and everything. So that's when you start working. So if I'm on the bow here, I pitch it out to my left, it drops about here, and I work it. And with pitching up current, your jig, instead of, right here with regular jigging, you can start here and then you jig big time, it can go all the way here. So when you're pitching up current, it's different. You're covering more ground. So you still start here when you drop down, but when you do lighter jigs, it goes to here, and then it goes to here, and then it goes to here. So it's closer in distance. So you're not skipping over like where that fish could be. That 12 pounder could be in the middle of the aisle, and I'm just jigging normal, or I'm using a conventional, and I'm doing big jigs like this. I just completely passed over that fish. Whereas with pitching up current, you do lighter jigs and you're working that smaller spot, but you have more coverage on the bottom. And more coverage on the bottom is really good too for bigger fish, because all bigger fish, they're lethargic, they're fat, they're not chasing bait like those smaller fish are. They're waiting for something to be presented right in front of them. So by having your bucktail rig on the bottom, spacing out closer together, that's more time for that big fish to see that bait and want to eat it instead of giving chase. And about 80% of the time when I'm pitching up current, we look at a clock. All my bites come at 12 o'clock. And then by the time I'm like done with my drift, that's when I have the fish in. And you don't want to overwork your drift because you just keep scoping out by the time you get here. You want to bring that in and work as many drifts as you can based off of how long your initial drift is over the piece. If you have a short drift, you can probably get maybe like 2 or 3 passes on it before the boat has to readjust. But if you have a longer drift, you can pitch up current like up to 6 times. It all depends on the piece you're fishing. But usually all the time I get my bites right at 12 o'clock when I'm facing the bow. So that's always fun. There's like, I don't know, there's like a science to it, but it's just always there. That's when you know. And if you don't get anything by the time you're at like 3 o'clock, reel it all in and restart. So here I made a little visual aid to kind of better show what pitching up current is from like captaining the boat. So say your piece is like right here. That's your drift zone. So you start your boat, you're not facing your drift. You're on the side of your drift. So you're drifting to the right, your boat is it's on the side. You're not facing your boat into the drift because you want to have, if you're solely pitching up current, you want to have the best, range and flexibility. You're not going to want to fish next to the side of the boat. When you're up at the bow, you have this whole zone to fish. So you cast it out, you let it drop. This whole green area is your fish zone. And then that's the area where you reel it in and you redo your drift. Even on the back of the boat. The back of the boat is a little more hectic. Sometimes at the bow too, if you have like a buddy that's glued to your hip that wants to fish up here, you gotta do a Chinese fire drill. So if you're fishing the back of the boat, this guy pitches it out, works it, the drift is going this way, so this other guy that's here switches spots with him, pitches his out while he fishes the other side. So it's like a revolving like door, I guess you can say. You gotta be moving. That's why I take the bow to myself. I literally climb up there and just stay there so no one's really like up in my area. So, because I don't like the Chinese fire drill. It's a little crazy, but it works. When you're fishing, like tournament fishing, and you have guys on the boat that do this too, like 6 guys on a boat, you make it work. I always say, you got 1 guy up front pitching up current, you got 2 guys right here pitching up current, or even 3. And then you have, these guys in the middle that are just dropping straight down conventional. So that's like the dream team of tournament fluking right there. That's your system. The gear I use for pitching up current. Now I brought one of my rods with me. This is a St. Croix SC5. This is the first rod I ever built too. So I love this rod. I also jig blackfish with it. So it has a lot of backbone, but it still can handle sensitive tip. So here, buddy, we're gonna have you hold this bucktail real quick. It has a hook guard on it, so you're safe. So just hold it tight. Yep, you're good. So see the rod, see the action on it? See how it still has backbone, but it still has a sensitive tip? That's what you want. You want to be able to handle. So medium to medium heavy size rod, 6 to 7 footer. I lean towards 6. I'll go up to 691. I don't really like going into 7 plus. The reels I use, they're all 3000s. This is a old Shimano Twin Power with 15 to 20 pound braid. Now 15, that's pretty light, but lighter braid gets to the bottom faster, and that's the name of the game when it comes to pitching up current. You want to get to the bottom as quickly as you can. So you can use 15-pound braid to get it down faster. And I also have another rod that I built. It's an old All-Star paired with a 3K Shimano Stratic. But you don't have to go to the custom route like I did. I built all my custom rods while I was still in school before I got student loans. So yeah, I got those done before I had to make those payments. So I got them done. But there's a ton of companies out there that make great factory rods that are perfect for this. Like Tsunami Tackle's really stepping up their game with their rods. Jigging World, there's Century Rods. They all have great rods for fluking. St. Croix, like you just got a personal preference. Even with your reels too, you all have personal preference. Like, you know, like you like Penn, you don't like anything else. Like they all make great reels for it and rods. So it's all personal preference. And you guys can come up at the end and take a look at this rod too. So the tackle I use, I keep it simple. I use, you can see here on the rig, we're gonna go back to the middle section here. I'm not gonna hit anyone. I use a 1 to a 1.5 ounce Magic Tails Hoochie jig. I use it in glow and pink shine. I just like the bucktails that glow better, just cause, you know, it's better for the bottom because the bottom's dark, so it helps the fish see it better. But I never go over 2 ounces. If you're pitching up current and you have to go to 2 ounces, you'll have to, but what I do is I'll never max it out. I'll just make it work the best I can. Either you put a drift sock in, you power drift, or you just adjust your Minn Kota. But there's some days where you just can't do it with the underwater current ripping too much. And then a little ways up, I do a 6/0 bait holder hook, and then on top of it, I have a skirt. This is a Tsunami hollow teaser skirt in glow. And what I like about this is there's no weight added to it. Because with the pitching up current rig, you don't want to have a lot of weight. You already have 1 to 1.5 ounces of lead on the bottom. And then there's, some people have those like weighted teaser hooks. I don't like them. So this is just a simple skirt that slides on, and that's the entire rig. And I'll pair up for bait. I only use artificial bait. You know, you got gulp. I'll use a 6-inch grub on the bottom, either pink shine or glow. And then up at the top, I'll use a 5-inch grub in pink shine or glow. And I also found a different company. They don't make 6-inchers yet, but they make 5s. And I'll use them for the teaser. They're called Q8 Super Bait. They're really durable. You can find them on Amazon. They're a Florida-based company, but they're trying to get exposure more up here. They're really good for fluke because I've had days where like, I'll go through my gulp. I don't want mushy gulp. I want durable gulp because the gulp is expensive. Any bait is expensive. So Q8, I had a day where I tested it on my teaser. I caught 8 fluke on the teaser and that bait was still good. You know, they have those sharp teeth so they'll rip through your bait, and this was a bang for your buck for sure. So give that a little consideration this fluke season too if you want to try something new or switch it up. Q8 Super Bait. And then this, you know, putting my college degree to work after I graduated with my BFA in graphic and interactive design and minored in marketing. I drew this, your very own pitching up current rig. So it's very simple. You start off with a barrel swivel. I know a lot of guys, you either direct tie your rigs, but for me, I pre-tie all my rigs before I go fluking, and I like a quick retie. And sometimes, you know, I got like gulp juice on my hands, I have sunscreen, I have just fluke slime. So it takes me a little bit longer to tie a uni knot, and it's just cleaner in my little Ziploc of all my rigs. I just like that, it's easier. And then I use 30-pound fluorocarbon, and I do like about 12 inches from the swivel to the dropper loop, and then another 6 inches from the dropper loop to the bucktail. And of course you have the Tsunami hollow teaser with a 6/0 bait holder and your bait of choice. And then you have your bucktail. And of course, company personal preference, you can use whatever bucktail you want. And my biggest tip, always pre-tie your rigs, and that rig you have on your rod from your previous fluking trip, retie it. Never reuse the same rig. There's been too many horror stories of people that have broken off big fish because they don't retie a rig. Not even with fluking, any other species you're targeting. Never reuse a rig. There's been personal, not me, but people I've seen on the boat experience breaking off a big fish because their rig it's not new, it's got little scratches in it. It looks like split ends on someone's terrible hairdo. It's no good. You don't want that. So always check after a couple drops. If you're fishing like rocky bottom or like you're on a wreck and you feel it, check your leader and everything just to make sure it's not all beat up. Because there's too many horror stories out there, and I'm trying to prevent fishermen from having nightmares and getting a good night's sleep. Benefits to pitching up current. This has been proven a tournament-winning tactic. I've caught my biggest fluke using this tactic. I like it so much better because it doesn't cause a lot of fatigue. If you're out there, like specifically tournament fishing, that's a long day. You're on the boat before the sun comes up, you're breaking the inlet just as sun up, and you're there till probably dinner time, depending on the tournament hours. But you're in the blazing heat, it's hot, you're dehydrated, and you're jigging a giant conventional rod for fluke, your arm's gonna get tired. I don't care how old or young you are, like your arm gets tired no matter what. So using lighter tackle kind of reduces that fatigue, and you're working out like both of your arms while you're doing it too, instead of just jigging with one hand, because you just lightly pitch with both and you're working it the entire way through. So I'm big on eliminating fatigue, and this is a good way of doing it. And another thing, like I said before, is it keeps the bait in front of the fish longer. Big fish are lethargic. They're not gonna give chase. They want something presented to them. Basically, there's been times where as soon as I drop down, I'll have a fish on. It's like you drop it on their head, basically. So it keeps the bait in front of the bigger fish for longer. That's the big thing you want. And the biggest thing when it comes to like getting into the science of rod building, bigger fish just feel better on a light tackle rod. Like when you have a big fluke on a light tackle rod and you get those big head shakes, it's awesome. It's a ton of fun. It's like catching a big fish on an ice fishing rod. Like it's ridiculous. Epic foreshadowing when you're out there. I fluke a lot, and that's probably the most fishing I do because the weather's usually good. I love black fishing, but the weather's always crappy, so I never get to go. But you have a lot of trips where you can make a lot of good memories, from catching your personal best on this tactic to, you know, making fun of your buddy for catching the state record sea robin, thinking it's a big fluke. Making memories is the biggest thing when it comes to fishing. And one of the things that I always see a lot of, I don't know if it's because I'm dazed in the summer heat, but there's a lot of foreshadowing that happens on the boat. And this is a really cool example of one day that I had where there was really weird foreshadowing. You say something and it kind of like becomes its own thing. And this day was one of them. The one thing I love about using this rig is I always say I want to double up on big fish. I want to get a big fish on the bucktail and the teaser. And that's one of the big like goals of this is you have two hooks, so use them. So this was a day where I doubled up, and I'll show you. This is the first part. So if you hear in the background, the guy says, that's going to be a tough one to beat. I'll play it one more time. But he goes, that's going to be a tough one to beat. And then, oh, that's the same day. So I had a bigger fish on the bucktail and then a smaller one on the teaser. So that's cool, you know, when stuff like that works out, when you have foreshadowing like that, it's fun. It's a good day. You can, yeah, you can flex that stuff. You can go back to the dock and be like, I doubled up on fluke all day, but you really just caught 4. So you can, you know, fishermen stretch it, but you know, you could say that, it's cool. But that's always a ton of fun when you have foreshadowing. Thank you guys so much for coming, and I hope you use this tactic this fluke season, and let me know. My work email's out there, you just email me. Send me pictures, I wanna see it, and catch some big fish this season, guys. Thank you.